The history of the centaur. Welcome back. The centaur is one of the most enduring and fascinating hybrid creatures in human mythology, art, and literature. Depicted as half-human, half-horse beings, centaurs have captured the imagination of civilization for millennia. Their dual nature, part rational man, part untamed beast, has been used symbolically to explore human nature, instinct, intellect, and the conflict between civilization and wildness. This 1,000-word account explores the centaur from its mythological origins through classical antiquity, its cultural symbolism, and its lasting legacy in modern literature, art, and science. Mythological origins. The concept of the centaur originates in ancient Greek mythology, with some of the earliest depictions dating back to the geometric period 900 to 700 BCE of Greek art. Centaurs were typically shown as wild, unruly creatures that roamed the mountains and forests of Thessaly, particularly Mount Pelion, which was often cited as their homeland. Mythical genesis. According to Greek myth, the first centaur was Centaurus, a being born from Ixion, a mortal king, and Nephili, a cloud shaped like the goddess Hera. The myth says that Ixion tried to seduce Hera, so Zeus tricked him by creating Nephili. Centaurus later mated with Maize, and their offspring became the race of centaurs, beings with the body of a horse and the torso of a man. This origin myth already suggests the conflict of animal desire and human reason, a theme that would persist throughout the centaur's symbolic life. Centaurs in Greek mythology. Centaurs appeared in many well-known Greek myths, often as antagonists or symbols of chaos and lack of self-control. However, a few individual centaurs broke the mold and were portrayed as wise and noble. Wild and violent centaurs. Most centaurs were depicted as wild, drunken, and violent. A famous example is a battle with the lapis, known as the Centauromachy, a popular motif in ancient art. At the wedding of Pirithous, king of the Lapis, the centaurs became drunk and tried to abduct the bride and other women. A bloody battle ensued, symbolizing the conflict between civilization, Lapis, and barbarism, centaurs. Noble centaurs, Chiron and Pholus. Despite their savage reputation, some centaurs were portrayed positively. The most famous is Chiron, a wise, gentle, and immortal centaur who tutored many Greek heroes, including Achilles, Asclepius, Hercules, and Jason. Chiron was skilled in medicine, music, archery, and prophecy, and was seen as a symbol of knowledge and discipline. Chiron's story ends tragically when he is accidentally wounded by Hercules and chooses to give up his immortality to end his suffering. He is later placed among the stars as a constellation Centaurus. Another centaur, Pholus, was also considered more thoughtful than his kin. He met a similar fate, killed accidentally by Hercules during a wine-related incident. Artistic representations. Centaurs were a frequent subject in Greek and Roman art, especially in sculpture, vase painting, and mosaics. They were often depicted in dynamic poses, emphasizing their dual nature and inner conflict. In classical art, centaurs represented contrasts: the rational versus a primal, the teacher versus a beast, the noble versus a violent. The Centauromachy was used on temples like the Parthenon to symbolize the triumph of order over chaos. Roman and medieval interpretations. In Roman times, centaurs retained their mythological attributes but were increasingly used as allegorical figures. In medieval Christian thought, centaurs were often reinterpreted as symbols of sin and the struggle between spirit and flesh. Medieval bestiaries and manuscripts depicted centaurs as evil demonic beings, reflecting the Christian suspicion of hybrids and ambiguity. However, the memory of wise centaurs like Chiron persisted, especially in scholarly circles. In Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, 1308 to 1321, centaurs appear in the Inferno, patrolling the river of boiling blood where violent sinners are punished. One of them, Nessus, acts as a guide for Dante and Virgil, another reference to their dual role as both fierce and wise. Renaissance to Enlightenment. During the Renaissance, classical mythology saw a resurgence in art and literature. Centaurs appeared in the works of artists like Michelangelo, Raphael, and Rubens, often used to explore human psychology and passion. Philosophers and scholars of the Enlightenment began to analyze centaurs more symbolically, interpreting them through the lenses of reason versus instinct and the limits of civilization. Centaurs in literature and popular culture. Centaurs have continued to appear in literature, fantasy, and pop culture, often embodying the same tensions between savagery and wisdom. Modern literature. Centaurs appear in works like C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia, portrayed as noble and wise. J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series, where centaurs like Firenze live in the Forbidden Forest and are skilled in astrology and divination. Madeline L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time, where centaur-like creatures are portrayed as higher beings. John Updike's The Centaur, 1963, a modern retelling of the Chiron myth, blending realism and myth to explore the human condition. Films and games. Centaurs have become staples in fantasy films, video games, and role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, The Elder Scrolls, and World of Warcraft, often depicted either as fierce warriors or wise forest dwellers. Centaurs in astronomy. The centaur's legacy extends to the stars. The constellation Centaurus, located in the southern sky, honors Chiron and has been known since antiquity. It contains Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. In modern astronomy, the term centaur is also used to describe a class of small celestial bodies that share characteristics of both asteroids and comets. These centaurs orbit between Jupiter and Neptune and include objects like Chiron, 2060 Chiron, named after the mythological centaur. Symbolism and psychology. In symbolic terms, the centaur represents a duality of human nature, reason versus instinct, civilization versus wildness, higher consciousness versus base desires. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst, referred to centaurs in his analysis of the archetypes of the human psyche. To Jung, the centaur represented the shadow self, the primal instincts that lie beneath the surface of the conscious mind. Conclusion. The centaur has galloped through history for over 3,000 years, embodying the tensions, contradictions, and potentials within the human condition. Whether viewed as wild beasts, wise mentors, spiritual guides, or cosmic travelers, centaurs continue to reflect our own internal dualities and the eternal struggle to balance our animal instincts with our higher reasoning. From ancient myth to modern media, from constellations to psychological archetypes, the centaur remains one of the most powerful and flexible symbols in human culture.